right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the central meeting of the Board of Trustees of East Central Independent School District being held on September 12, 2023, beginning at 5:30 at the Student Services Center. Madam Secretary, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Emilio Carrasco.
I'm here.
Ginger Friesenham.
Here.
Victor Garza.
Here.
James Mulkey. Gail Brazil is glad to be here.
Yeah.
Nick Presser.
Here.
And Mr. Massingham.
I'm here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We'll move on to item 3, prayer and pledge. Mr. Scannell.
Shane McKay.
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for this day, Lord, and we just thank you for the opportunity to gather together, Lord. We just want to thank you for these members of the trustees and the committee, Lord, that are just always here every day. They're present, they're available, they're accessible, Lord. We just are so humbled and grateful by the way they volunteer their time and their commitment to make the East Central community a better place, Lord. We're just so thankful and humbled by their service. Lord, just ask that you continue to provide a hedge of protection around our students and our staff and our greater community, Lord. We just want to thank you again. We're grateful that rain is on the way. We're praying that it comes. We know our land needs it right now. We just ask that you protect everybody on their travels home after this meeting. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Mr. McKay. With that, we'll move on to item 4, public comments.
No comments.
No public comments. Awesome. We are moving right along, just like I like it. All right, item 5, team building workshop. Mrs. Scannell.
So trustees, we have Dr. Sherry Bays here with us again, from Region 20, to provide a continuation of our Team of 8 training. Today's focus will be on a board self-assessment using the TASB Honor Board rubric. You guys submitted some responses to a survey where you rated your perceived performance of the board relative to each of those categories in the rubric. And so Dr. Bays will take us through a facilitated dialogue around kind of the results in an effort to kind of maybe get to a place where the board can prioritize their continuing education efforts for this year with respect to kind of where the survey indicated might be some opportunities, and to reinforce some areas where obviously the board is operating at a high level. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Bays.
Okay, we're going to switch out and when we go through an exercise here in just a minute. But thank you for having me back. I really enjoyed being with all of you. Emilio, I didn't get to say hello to you because I was running around, but glad to see you again. I had a good turn. Okay, everybody. So hopefully James will be able to make it, or do we think he'll be able to make it?
No, he's not going to be here.
Okay, that's all right. So yeah, like Roland was saying, just to kind of set the tone for what we're wanting to do today, the purpose of the team building is really to enhance the Team of 8 relationship. So to enhance that relationship between the school board and the superintendent. So what we're going to be doing today, I'm sorry, this will get better in just a minute. So we're going to start off with a little team building activity. So I'm going to ask for you.
Are we doing trust falls?
No trust falls today. It's a dinner party, and I think that's so appropriate. We're having wonderful Italian food right now. It smells delicious. I'll think about make better, it's a glass of wine, but we know we can't do that at school, so we won't be doing that. We're going to talk a little bit about roles and responsibilities for school board and for the superintendent, and then we're going to take a deeper dive into this self-assessment that Roland was just talking about. Through that process, we may identify some continuing education needs, and so we're going to reflect on that, and then just talk about if there are any next steps for you as a board. In a team of 8, I should say. Oh my goodness. Okay, so there's a book called The Governance Core. This is a book that, have you You guys heard about it. Have y'all read it?
I read it.
Okay. I thought it was a great book. What
I
about you?
agree.
Yeah. It's a book that TASB recommends when you're going through the TASB Leadership Academy. I think it's a year-long training. Is that where you heard about it?
Oh, no,
Yeah.
at the new board member launch.
Okay. And so what I'm going to do tonight a couple of times is just pull some different quotes that I think are really are relevant to the work that we're going to do this evening. So in order to gain a shared understanding, trustees and superintendents must engage in the give and take of ideas. And so, that's really what tonight is about. It's not very often that you're able to really just, be together and have a more casual, less formal conversation, maybe being better able to explain why you're thinking what you're thinking. And so that is what tonight is all about. So even though you were anchoring to that board self-assessment that you took, it's really about the conversation. It's about the conversation where it takes us. So I encourage you to be open-minded, really to seek to understand and to listen so that you can learn more about each other. Okay, good. So while we're doing this, I'm going to fix this PowerPoint presentation. So this team building activity, I will say a school board president that I worked with a couple of months ago found this, and at first I thought, that's a little bit hokey. But it generated the best conversations and really gave the other board members and superintendent just kind of a window into their other team members. Excuse me. And so this is what we're going to do over the next couple of minutes. I'm going to give you about 60 seconds just to think about it. But I'd like for you to share one person, dead or alive, that you would most like to have dinner with, and why. And it can be anybody, someone you know, someone you knew, someone you don't know, but you just always wish you did know them. So just think about that for about 60 seconds, then we're just going to go around and share out on that.
Do we have an order?
Got mine already.
Oh, God. Thor. I'm scared. What's yours, John? Go first.
Oh, it's gonna be a blast.
Well, let's hear it.
I'm not ready yet.
I'm scared. What you got down?
Oh, wow. It has to be one person.
Yeah, that's the hard part, right? Just
Yeah, just one.
The name that came to me was Maya Angelou, and I just would love to, just to hear her voice and just to hear some of her thoughts, that she is beautifully placed in writing and that kind of thing.
And why Maya?
Because she is an influencer. She has thoughts that just kind of permeate throughout a lot of different barriers or whatever the case may be. And just to me, an insanely wise woman.
Okay.
And I'd like to sit at the foot of that, at the feet of that wise person. Mhm.
Okay, thank you for sharing. All right, anybody here?
Mine's the other end of the spectrum.
Okay.
I mean, Thor, who doesn't want to have dinner with Thor? His work. I like his accent.
Yeah,
He's easy on the eyes.
okay.
Let's
Any
talk
other
about-
reasons?
Let's talk about movies. I don't know. No?
That's fine.
Just like accent.
So what?
I have a thing with my Siri is an Australian man.
Whatever.
So when I'm getting directions, it's turn into the car park. I like accents.
Okay, so we got Maya Angelou, and you're
Yeah,
right, at the
yeah,
other end of the
yeah.
spectrum, we have Thor. Shane, I'm ready.
You all right?
No, somebody, shout it out.
Huh?
Who do you want to have dinner with, John?
Oh, Jesus, of course.
Jesus.
Not for the reasons you think, though.
Oh, okay. We get to.
So tell us about it.
Hey, Jesus was a wine drinker, and I tried to do some good shit that he had. So I mean, I want to have whatever he's drinking because it's going to be the best that's ever been served. For that reason only.
Okay, so you are a wine connoisseur.
Yes, ma'am, I am. I keep trying to turn this shit into wine, but it doesn't work. So.
Did you hear where wine was literally, flowing down
Yep,
the
the
road.
streets, yeah, 600,000 gallons.
Oh, that hurt my heart when I
Huh?
heard that.
I think somewhere in Spain,
They had like a big.
they had
bus.
two
It's
tanks,
huge.
two tanks
Tank
ruptured.
light.
Wow.
It was like a river flowing down the street.
They literally showed it on TV. I mean, it was a ditch full of red water. At first I thought, oh, that's not really wine,
No.
but they said it was.
Yeah,
Wow.
Ouch.
Is your
Yeah.
people with a cup?
I've been scooping it up.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay,
I'm-
Michelangelo, Thor, and Jesus.
That's that,
That's
exactly.
a, that's a group right there.
Yep. Okay. Victor, you want to share?
My sixth grade teacher,
Oh, there you go.
Oh, okay.
because she pushed me into the spelling bee. I'd like to know what the hell she was thinking. Because I didn't think I could spell dog correctly. And she pushed me into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wound up representing the elementary school, wound up in the spelling bee. And
Oh, so you won your school?
yes, and I went into the spelling bee. I'd leave it at that. But I'd like to know what the hell she was thinking and what she saw in this kid that she pushed this young man into it, because she asked, she says, the spelling bee's coming up. And we're talking about 1958, 59, so I still remember the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
She says, we're having the spelling bee, and it's coming up. Who wants to participate or volunteer? Of course, the girls did, all the girls.
Right.
Any more? No? Okay, I'll volunteer some people. You, and you, and you, and I was one of the yous.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to, winning the contest, representing our elementary. And since then, I've had no problem spelling. It just opened up that ability,
Mm-hmm.
the confidence that I would spell. From that, I went to my sister's neighbor, who was a teacher at one of the schools in her district. We gave her a spelling book, the words.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I was spelling the words. All of a sudden I could spell the words. Building, I could spell it. Team, I could spell. Encyclopedia, I could spell. All of a sudden they just opened up.
Yeah.
And after a while I said, look, give me the word, and if I know it, I said, okay. If I don't, if I have doubts, I'll spell it.
Mm-hmm.
And we did this every night. And there was 99% of them I could spell. When I couldn't spell science before, all of a sudden I could spell all these words. And since then, I've had no problem. And I would like to sit with her and ask her, what did you see in this kid that you pushed him into doing this? And forever thank her.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to know
Why she did it.
why she did that.
Okay. It obviously built confidence and,
Hmm?
yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Sum up, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, real good. So I pondering on it and thinking about it, so I'm thinking Moses. And someone that went from luxury to not luxury,
Mm-hmm.
and then having to stand before Pharaoh and telling him what God told him to tell him. And his inability to speak,
Mhm.
Moses,
Mm-hmm.
and still having the responsibility, right? And then all these people, he's leading all these people, the tremendous weight on his shoulders. How did you handle that? That would be my question. How did you handle it? What did you do?
And sometimes we
How did
think a week is a long time, right?
Right,
40 years.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so yeah, that would be kind of the topic. I'd want to see how did he endure? How did he do what he did? 'Cause I'm gonna tell you, talking about pressure, and then people clamoring and wanting to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have been better off in Egypt, they said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so yeah, that would be my conversation.
Okay. Okay. Renee?
I would like to have dinner with Freddie Mercury.
Okay.
Because I've always loved Queen, but his story, I've read like lots of books and seen the movie and whatnot, but no one really realized what a musical genius he was. And his perseverance you know, is why Queen got to where they were. He just never gave up. He believed so truly in himself and the ability of that band to be where they finally ended up. He never quit. And even when they were turned away and told the song was too long, no one would ever listen to it and whatnot. And then the fact that they filled stadiums the way they did, and their music was so universal, it just crossed so many languages that people truly were able to sing along with, they were from other countries, you know? And so I just liked his perseverance, you know, he believed so truly that they were gonna be something. And he never gave up, and, you know, they're still kicking it today, even though they're not here.
The power of believing.
Yeah,
right?
he just did, he really
Just
did.
believing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Roland?
Well, since door's already taken, you know, who came to mind, well, first was a guy named Pat Tillman. Because, you know, I think we all aspire to lean in when, you know, we're faced with the worst of times and not run from it, but also to serve others before self and all these things that we all espouse. But, and this guy actually did it when he had everything. Everything he'd ever hoped and dreamed in his life for his future, he had. And yet, he leaned in at the worst of times and gave it all up and risked, ultimately, his life and then lost it in something he believed in. I'm just curious what he was thinking, you know? What was his upbringing that led to that? Was there any hesitation? Was there any doubt? Or did you just know it, feel it, and commit to it and go? And were you worried about not coming home and your children and your family and all the things that you had built professionally and possibly losing that? You know, just the real hard questions that he obviously wasn't worried about because he lived what and I think all of us somewhere deep inside really want to embody, but it's easier said than done, and he did it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, very interesting. Thank you for sharing. Hopefully you learned a little something about one of your team members here. Okay, so here's another quote from the governance core. It's going to kind of get us into talking about roles and responsibilities. And so it says, generally governance is about defining the what of the organization, and administration is focused on the how policy gets implemented. If the discussion is focused on long-term outcomes, then it tends to be strategic. But if it's short-term focused or looking at incremental steps, that tends to be more tactical or administrative. So as a board, as you're governing, your role is definitely more in that strategic, looking from, as this slide will say, there's strategic, tactical, and operational. And so looking really from that, the big picture, that 50,000-foot view. And so,
No, it wasn't.
I'm sorry?
You weren't in the way.
I wasn't? Okay. I'm gonna go on this side so I can read better though. Okay, so I'm just gonna read through these, and this is the only slide I promise you that I'm gonna read through. But I think it's important to kind of just touch on all of these different areas in each of these different roles. So from that strategic point of view, it's really seeing the big picture, being way up high, right? And kind of looking down and looking at the organization through that really, really wide lens. The board oversees the entire school, the entire district, and sees how the parts can relate to the whole. Focusing on representing the community's needs and interests. You're elected by your community members. Looking to long-term, usually 3 to 5 years, goals is what the board is focused on. Provide overall structure at district goal level, and then sets clear targets for improvement. And so that direction is really governing the district. It's steering the district, right, in the right direction. So when you move over to that middle column, it's focused more on administration And so, that could be administration at central office, it could be administration even within some departments or on campuses. But when you're looking at administration, so they see a wide picture, not quite as big as what you're looking at, right, as the board. So we call that 10,000-foot view. Coordinates the component parts of the organization, oversees the schools and the departments, focuses on working with constituents, the parents, working with students and the staff, looks 1 to 3 years ahead. So really, they're basing goals off of what the board has at that higher level. You're looking at 3 to 5 years. This is what we want. This is where we want to be. So administratively, then they begin to say, okay, then, so how do we get there in these smaller steps, right? Provide structure at district and school levels, and creates and deploys plans that will lead to improvement. So they're taking that direction from the board, and they're really putting that to work and making sure that plans are in place and that there is accountability. And then you've got that operational piece. And so while this does say teachers, it doesn't necessarily have to be only teachers in different departments. It could be cafeteria staff. It could be bus drivers. There are definitely other people. It's not just teachers. But when you're thinking, I think academically and socially, it says focuses on the small picture, and it's that point of impact with children. And that's what's happening really on a daily, a weekly, monthly basis. Coordinates a specific part of the organization, oversees the classroom or the department, focuses primarily on students, looks at days, weeks, months, not 3 to 5 years ahead, provides detailed structure at the classroom level, and then refines and adjusts plans so that improvement will result. So have you ever seen the roles kind of spelled out like this?
No, I like it.
You do. So what do you like about it?
Because it's, here's your job, your role, this is you, like it breaks it down, the umbrella, like exactly who's got what.
Okay, good. And I think a really important component of team building is clear communication, right? And so and there could be times, right, where as board members, maybe you pull out of that strategic 50,000-foot view and you kind of hover down a little bit, but that's not where you want to stay, right? You want to make sure that the majority of your time is in that strategic role. Same thing for administration. I mean, there may be some work where they're trying to coordinate, better understand some of the determining priorities and goals and working collaboratively, but the board is really who determines the direction. Anybody else have any thoughts or comments about how this is? Okay, it's a good, I think it's a good visual to anchor back to and go back to the communication piece. So it's so much easier to talk about roles on the front end than when maybe you feel like, one of your members isn't in the role they should be. And then it becomes a conversation that sometimes can be awkward. And so, having some clear expectations from the beginning can really be helpful in that team of 8 relationship.
I was gonna say, I think one of the things that's still kind of challenging is the perception that that a lot of other people have about what the board's role is, and so you find yourself, at least for me, trying to be more focused on and even trying to model what it is or what it isn't. And so, it's really interesting. I mean, we go to a lot of workshops and we hear a lot of things, and, you know, there are questions, just like you do, or whatever. Okay, what do you really, what do you do? And, I think that there really needs to be a lot of work out there that kind of helps us, so that we won't have to spend so much time maybe explaining or modeling that there is, that, you know, it's a team of 8. There is a role that we don't get into, because people, and I know everybody goes to this, people think, oh, you're on the board. Oh,
You're
you know,
gonna fix
yeah,
this, aren't
you
you?
are the one. It's like, oh, no. I'm not, and I'm only one person, and I'm all of those other things. But, yeah, I think that's the challenge.
It is a challenge, I agree, really educating. And a lot of times, even when board members first get on, they're not quite sure, right? Exactly what their role is. So sometimes it takes time to kind of learn how you're fitting in, where you can make an impact, those kinds of things. But I think that's where, and I don't know if y'all adopted it or not, but I know y'all were working on the board operating procedures. And so a lot of times, having those kinds of documents that you can anchor back to help you in those kinds of circumstances. And then also having those, in depending on the length, maybe not in its entirety, but having pieces of that on your website or somewhere where it's available. So when you have those community members coming to you, those friends, those family members, you know, you can share whatever your protocol says you're going to share, but then also you can anchor them back to, you know, it's right here. This is how we work. Like, I'm one member of a board of 7, and so, you know, we have to work together. Yeah, good point. Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest challenges, I think. You know, because everybody thinks that you're going to fix it all for them.
Hey Sherry,
Yes.
we'll talk a lot, we'll use an analogy at the district leadership level about, you know, you need to be on the balcony more than you're on the dance floor. Doesn't mean you never go down to the dance floor and make sure you understand how the people are experiencing the work. But most of your time should be spent high enough on the balcony that you can see the patterns and the relationships and the parts of the whole, and where opportunities are to fix systems and structures, so that you can also tell whether the entire body is moving in the direction that we envisioned for. The other thing that we'll say is, you need, another way to look at it is, you have to spend most of your time working on the system, not in it. And it's counterintuitive, because everybody in leadership, everybody who serves, has always been a doer.
Right.
You got where you are because you've gotten your hands dirty and you've been on the dance floor where the work's happening. But at some point, you know, at certain levels of leadership, at certain levels of governance, you have to make sure all of that is happening.
Yeah.
But it's through other people who are executing the structures and systems in an effort to move the organization towards the intended outcomes. And that feels very counterintuitive to everybody who's in service and everybody who's in leadership, because that's what got us here won't keep us here.
Yes.
Is kind of another way to think about it.
And I love hearing you say that, because that's a message. I work specifically with new superintendents in Region 20, and that is something that we try and stress to them the first time we come together, is what got you here isn't really going to keep you here, because you were probably a really good manager, and now your role has changed, and, you know, principals have no idea about the importance of the board relationship. I mean, that's really probably the biggest change from an administrator, whether it's a campus or central office, to being the superintendent, and realizing, okay, you've got people that are helping to get the work done within the district, but a lot of, you know, your superintendent's time is also working with you, getting to know you, understanding the vision that you have for your district. Any other comments on that? Okay, we'll kind of anchor back to this at the very end. So if anything is relevant and you want to talk about it, feel free to do that. Okay, in effective teams of 8, I was going through some, honestly, some presentations that I've done in the past, and I had a new board member a couple of months ago, actually, during the ISO training. Anybody recently gone through the ISO training? I don't know. Have you, Amelia, maybe? That's the evaluating and improving student outcomes. It's the 3-hour one. It's a long one. Anyway, but we talked about the team of 8, and he really had a problem with that. He said, we're his boss. We're not a team. Like, we're not team members. We're his boss. And so, we try to explain, it's really this, I don't know if symbiotic is the right word, but you definitely have your own roles, but you also have to be working together. That's where the importance of the team comes from, right? So trustees govern the district, but it does so with the advice of the superintendent. He's your educational expert. That's why he's sitting in the seat. You all are experts in a lot of different areas, but it's not really in education. Not that you haven't probably learned a lot as you're sitting in that seat. And then the superintendent, it's the superintendent's job to manage the district, but they have to do so with the oversight and management of the board and within the framework, policies, and the priorities that you all adopt. And so the team of 8 just can't put enough importance on this relationship that you have, and always seeking opportunities to build trust, to build on, not that there isn't trust, to continue to build on that trust. Because you can also have it, and then you can lose it, right? So it's also, this is a great opportunity this evening as we take a deeper dive into the self-assessment to really talk about perceptions. Because you may be perceiving something totally different that once you explain it, there's an, oh, aha, okay, now I get where you're coming from, right? Okay, all right, here's another quote from the governance core. So the basic human need to overcome feelings of inadequacy encourages trustees to grab hold of issues where they can display some expertise and avoid discussions that they don't understand. And as they fall into the habit of dealing with organizational, financial, procedural matters, they neglect their primary function of governing school districts. So as you think about that, so here's the deal. This is one of these things, use your strengths for good, not evil. We used to always say that because like y'all just did the Kersey temperament sorter. So we used to use Strengths Finder. And so the whole point of that is, okay, just look my train of thought. Where was I going with that? I'm sorry.
Use your strengths for good, not evil.
Yes, okay, thank you. Thank you, Roland. Yes, so, for example, somebody may have a lot of experience with construction. Just from what I learned about y'all in our last meeting, no one mentioned anything like that. But, so, with that experience, could that be helpful to your superintendent? Sharing thoughts or ideas or something in that field, of course. But is it the board member's job to be visiting the site, right? And to be checking on the construction, those kinds of things. So it's a natural tendency to say, oh, like, I'm good at this. I have some information, I want to share that. But then the other piece of it is, I mean, have you ever wanted to ask questions, but you're not sure how to ask it? Like you feel like maybe you don't even know enough to ask the question. And so, but that's where, as you build this trust, that you would begin to be more comfortable saying, hey, I need something, I need more information on that. And I will say, I'm trying to think which training it is. I think in ISO, there are actually some questions that, and they came from TEA, but is provided to board members. And they're just some generic questions that can be provided, that, that can be asked, I'm sorry, that would allow you, allow you to ask a question without having a lot of knowledge in that area, but to be able to solicit more information. So, any questions about that before we go on?
I could really see the value in what you're saying. I was thinking, and we all have different backgrounds, and I'm so sorry I missed the other last meeting because I bet that was fun. But when you were talking that the earlier statement was you govern with the, I forgot the exact language, but yeah, with the advice of the superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
And it just made me think about how important, and we're told this and we know this, how important it is that our job is that we hire the superintendent or whatever you want to put that. And how important that is, and how important the relationship was. You were talking about someone that didn't agree with that, but this is the way I look at this, because I'm a nurse, so my background's in the hospital and that kind of thing. And you have that team concept and all of that. But and I'm a nurse. I don't stop being a nurse because I'm a board member, but I'm not a board member. I'm not on this board as a nurse.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And and I get tickled because when some things come up about health, I go, and a lot of times our super kind of look at me. You like that, right? but that's the thing, and we have to learn that. You have to understand your role. And I used to have this conversation when we had a group, when we would sit together at the table to discuss patient, whatever the situation, discharge plan, whatever, and everybody brings something to that. We don't need the social worker being the nurse. We got a nurse to be that.
Yeah.
We don't need the business person to be the social worker. We need everybody that's at that table to function in their role so we can work together for the good of getting the patient what they need or whatever. And so I can appreciate that we can learn a lot from just our experiences outside of this boardroom. And that's why if I came on as a construction worker, that I do not need to be doing that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for
all.
sharing that. I think that is an excellent example. So certainly, if a community member came to you with a concern about the nurse, and it raised a red flag for you, I don't know what your protocol says, but certainly Roland wants to know about that. He
can call me and ask me anything.
Yeah.
Plus, his daughter's a nurse, and so we always have these little,
that's right.
we have these little off-the-table conversations.
But should you visit the campus and drop in at the nursing station? Absolutely not, right? That would not be in your lane. That's in Roland's lane for him to take care of that, right? Thank you for sharing that. That's a great example. Any others before we go on? Okay. Why conduct a board self-evaluation? I will tell you it's not mandatory, but the commissioner does suggest that all boards do a self-evaluation. Annually would be preferred, but doesn't have to be. So just some reasons here. Effective boards do take the time to kind of monitor themselves. It helps them to better understand where they are effectively governing, and can also identify some areas where there could be some growth opportunities. It can hold the board accountable, so by actually having the conversation, then you can begin to anchor back to that to see some positive change if that's needed. It can help the board to make better decisions by kind of reminding them to stay focused on their work. And then again, I said this earlier on, it's just value in the discussion of this process. So it's really not about, filled out that survey, we're done. No, it's about, okay, why? Why do we answer in those ways? So in order to be effective, to do the job of governing, all members of the board have to be effective, not just a few. All trustees have to be leaders working together toward the same goals. And so that's why it's really important to take time to kind of self-assess the work. that whole perception thing that I talked about is critically important to make sure that you're aligned, working toward the same goals. So that's a lot of what our conversation is going to be about this evening. It's really good, the board self-evaluation. Okay, so Roland did a great job of kind of summarizing what you guys filled out. So this was literally a rubric that TASB uses when they are deciding on the finalists to choose the school board of the year. And so it's a great tool to kind of reflect on. And I will say, it's really important as we start looking through some of these scores, and we don't know how any individual answered, it's just as a group, these were the responses that were reported in the Google form. But one of the things I want to point out is, as we're having discussions this evening, a lot of people may have just looked, for example, at number 1, functions as a policy-making body. Some of you may have read every one of those indicators and then made a decision on how you would rank it. Some of you may not. You may have just kind of assumed, okay, I know what we do as far as policy making and provided a response. And then others, as we go through this discussion, you may have interpreted in this example, the 4 indicators under number 1, you may be thinking about different things, right? So, with that said, if you flip to the back page, the very last page, you'll see there's just an average there under all 10 of the areas. And I've got it up here too. And so first off, I want you to know there really isn't anything concrete about how I have the numbers color-coded, okay? I mean, just as easily, the 4 and the 7 could kind of be in the yellow and kind of that neutral area. So there's not any scientific reasoning behind that. It was just a way to begin a conversation as we're looking at how you responded to those areas. So what I wanted to do first off, I'm not going to read through all of them right now because we'll end up talking about most of them. But what I want to do is I want to talk about, first off, the area that has the highest rating. Then we're going to talk about the area that has the lowest rating, which I'm going to tell you guys, 8's not low. Not at all. But that is your lowest rating. And then we're going to, I have 1 or 2 identified that have a range, like the widest range, where somebody responded with a 4. But then others responded with a 10, and to kind of talk a little bit about those. And then how, if time permits, we could talk about a few others, if there are any others that you want to take a little bit deeper dive in. So with that, the highest score is number 6. So I'm going to go through here to number 6. Provision of financial support for the school system. So 1 person put a 9, and 6 of you put 10, or a 9.9. I'll tell you that's the highest average I've seen as we've worked with boards over the last 2 years. So tell me why. Why do y'all, any ideas on why there is so much agreement in this specific area?
Because we have a Judy Kearns.
Okay. So you have
Well
somebody that you
said.
have a lot of faith and trust in.
100%.
Yeah.
I think East Central has always stood on the side of being very conservative and frugal
Mhm.
in the means of planning for days down the road. The people that handle all that stuff are extremely intelligent in that area,
Mhm.
and they've always brought things to us that are very explanatory and why. And so we've always been given such a large amount of information on why the things are done the way they are.
Mhm.
And we've seen a success with that kind of thought process. So we believe in it
Yeah.
because it works out.
So what is some of the information that you're provided that makes you feel so confident?
You know, Judy will talk about her anticipation for student attendance.
Mhm.
And maybe it might look a little low at one point, but that's not the end all, that it could, you know, she tries to be on the side of being a little bit, negative, if you will, because she
Mhm.
knows it'll end up being, but she tries to be realistic about it and really says, oh, it's not gonna be as high as I think, and then it turns out to be that way.
Yeah.
But she doesn't jump over and go really crazy with things, and she explains why.
Okay.
And a lot of the budgeting things that they do, whether it be on the campus, at the campus level with the principals and teachers, and, or at the admin level, we're always explained to, you know, why they're doing that, how they're doing that, or their successes with
Mhm.
that process at every level are shared with us,
Okay. So it's really good information for Mr. Chasano to be hearing right now,
Yeah.
right? So he knows to continue to do those kinds of things.
And good audits. I'm Maritime accountant, and I know how important.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
She does her
Yes.
research as
Yeah.
far as other districts, as far as our tax rate goes. She's not competitive in a way that she just wants to beat them, but she wants to let us know, to let our constituents, our
Mhm.
public, our voters know that we have a very good tax rate for our district.
Okay, good. It's nice when they can highlight for you things that you can share.
That we get
right?
asked a lot.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like a little elevator story.
Mm,
You can
elevator.
get out. Yeah. Anybody else have any opinions on why this is almost a perfect score?
Who is that?
You don't have to say.
I wanna
So I will say, if you look at number 6 in your handout, so let's look a little bit deeper at those indicators. The statement showing total taxable base of district, applied tax rate, average expenditure per child in the district, adequacy of facilities, educational programs, and employee salaries and benefits, and efforts being made to finance schools. So know that, because honestly, I don't know if y'all have ever done this, but working with y'all last week, and then seeing how you are all so closely aligned in a lot of the work, you definitely should consider throwing your name in the hat for Board of the Year. And sometimes board members will say, it's not about us, it's not, I don't want that light shown on me. It's about the district, it's about the kids. But what I'd like for you to stop and think about is there are so many great things going on that y'all all shared. And it might be a missed opportunity if you don't try and share that with other boards, So just something to think about as you're getting ready to go to Tascasby. Is the whole team going? Or some of you going?
Most.
Most everybody.
Okay. Okay, so let's look at the indicators again real quick. So that one, I'm guessing that these are things that are reported to you on probably at least an annual basis. Things like attendance, you mentioned that, those are things that, and however it's working for you is great. But these are things that you would want to think about if you're not doing some of those, or maybe some of these things are happening, but where's the proof? Like, where is it? So your staff will know about it, so that your community will know about it, and so that you know how to speak to it. Evidence of efficient business management practices, which clean audits are always great. And then trends indicating financial support for educational programs. So are there any examples that you can think of in terms of specifically aligning dollars to something that you've prioritized in the district, whether it be a program or some something new that the district is doing.
What comes to mind is when we brought in they were struggling with we wanted to help them with the lesson planning and take time off of them doing all that. We've got a program that does it
Some
for them.
high-quality instructional materials.
Oh, yes, okay.
We've adopted
Okay.
several,
Mhm.
started rolling out last year that we rolled out much more broadly this year,
Mhm.
particularly in literacy and math.
Look, well, I
Huge
always want to
investment.
think about the teachers first. They're the ones with our littles. And so if that helped them, I was 100% on board with anything like that.
Yeah, let's do it then.
One of the questions that was asked at a convention that we went to not that long ago was, when we're seeing the test scores and they're low, if a superintendent says, well, no, we're supposed to ask them, what can we do for you, or whatever, I never really connected that
Mhm.
until we really dove deep into those programs, because that's not for him, but it's for him in a way that is gonna help our teachers, maybe help our kids bring up the score. So
Exactly.
what can I do for you is basically stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I really
I'm
need a
not
connection.
sure if every district or board are lucky enough to have what we have, and that is if we're not receiving it verbally in a report, live report at a meeting,
Mhm.
everything is always backed up with a paper report. And I mean,
Okay.
it may go as deep as, it's a ton of information that's
Mhm.
available to us.
So you can only go as deep as you want to go.
Yeah,
So I
and if we
understand.
need more, if we need something else, then Roland and the rest of the admin are always readily available, and they will say, if you need anything more from me, you're more than welcome to call on me. So we get over an abundance of material, printed material,
Mhm.
to back up the reports or maybe something that's mentioned within a meeting. Everything I see on here, we've gotten in verbally as a presentation, and then as a packet of some sort with that same report.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, it
It's
is
great.
great, it is.
I was thinking, and I just shared that my husband's an accountant, and I think there's nothing more boring than a bunch of spreadsheets. And, oh, God. All I want to know is, do I have enough money to go by? Are we good, or, you know, that's all I want to know.
That's on the
But
last
I was
page.
thinking of an indirect, I was thinking of, when you were saying that, I was thinking of an indirect way that people get to know about how we kind of look. And that's our attendance matters thing that's been going out every year. And we know that does mean money.
It does.
But the wonderful, and as wonderful as Judy is, there still has to be a whole lot of other people working on that to get that out and that kind of thing. So and every time I look forward to seeing, okay, who's going to be talking about attendance this time? And I think it is just great. So there are so many creative, innovative ways to make this more interesting than just spreadsheets
right.
or that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
That's right.
Those are great examples.
Mhm.
Maybe
We had our finance meeting this morning. We have a monthly finance at work, and I go, we get our reports, or my wife prints out reports. And I look at the first page, and then I go right to she says testify this. And I go to the last page and say, okay, we doing a black or red side of this, and if it's a negative number or a positive number, and if it's
That's all
positive,
you
I'm
need to
happy.
see.
If not,
That's it.
Go right to the last page, that's all the details there, that's all I need.
Well, and some
Cut
of
and
that
dry.
is because you, and I'm sure it's happened over time, but there's trust there too, right? And so sometimes in the school district example, when you have veteran board members who have been on the board, they may be very comfortable with the information they're getting. Whereas a new board member doesn't quite have that level of trust yet. So they may be asking more questions, right, initially, just trying to make sure that they understand, not that they see a problem, but just really seeking to understand.
And I think that's okay. I mean,
Yes.
you're not gonna be comfortable as a 20-year or 10-year or whatnot. And I was that person,
Right?
you know, and I
Yeah.
think it would be unfair for me to forget that I was that person.
Mhm.
And that's how I learned, was to ask questions, you
Yeah.
know? So, I think that's a great thing, and it encourages discussion. And we are lucky that we have people that we can reach out to that are always so welcoming and happy to answer our questions. So
Mhm.
I think if it's a veteran board member or if one of our newer board members, we never, ever are pushed away or make it feel like we're bothering or whatnot. So I think it's important
Good.
on every level.
Okay. All right, so, that was a near perfect score. So I said the next one we would look at was going to be the lowest score, which again, 8 isn't a low score when you're really looking at the spectrum here. But, you can see one person rated it a 5, 2 rated it a 7, 3 rated it a 9, and one person gave it a 10, looking at the maintenance of harmonious and supportive relationships among board members.
These were all hard for me,
Were they?
because, most of the bullet points could get a different number. So it's hard for me to group in all of
Okay,
them
yeah.
and rate it as a whole, like,
Mhm.
statements from individual board members and news media personnel. I mean, I've never experienced news media
Mhm.
or individual board members testifying to harmonious or other. You know what I'm saying? So that was, I mean, I probably read too much. I always like overanalyze, so.
No, but it's fair because it could be that you feel differently about one statement than you do the other.
Right.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so then let's break down the statements a little bit. So starting off with statements from individual board members and news media personnel testifying to the harmonious working relationship among board members. So keep in mind, when a board is before a table of superintendents and you're sharing your story, just like you were saying, Monique, there are artifacts that come with your finance information. Like you get that oral report, but then there's some written documentation to support it. So this is one of those things. And I don't know that this is something that can be really artificially created, but it would be really keeping track of opportunity when, I don't know if it's an opportunity, but keeping track of when there are positive stories in the paper, and when there are opportunities for the superintendent to speak to the press, or maybe the board president. I'm not sure what your protocol is on that. One of the things is to really think about, it's not I. Don't talk about I, it's about we, it's about the team. And so, the more you can get the word out that you are a team and that you work well together, that will put the community at ease, really. It will put the staff at ease. When there's turmoil amongst the team of 8, that can filter down. It can filter down the departments and campuses and even into the classroom.
So most effective and least effective, meaning statements from board members saying how wonderful the board is or whatever, that would be most effective, meaning we do that, it's most effective for our district.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm kind of like Ginger. I think we could have written that better.
Okay.
So it makes it a little
And
more
when you put news media, I understand it's the news media that's reporting the fact that we work well together on, maybe unanimously said that we wanted to have ice cream for all the kids or something. But what I'm saying is, I just think there could have been a little bit more meat on these bones.
Okay.
So,
We I had out a little more.
Yeah.
so I struggle with it too, but you said something a minute ago that helped me kind of contextualize it. And that is a reminder that this is the rubric that the committee who selects Board of the Year uses to score the board that is submitting an application, right?
Yes.
So number 10, I believe that first bullet is speaking to that in most cases, what you see in the media is boards who are struggling to operate functionally. So there's a lot of negative press
Right.
about board and board relations and these sorts of things, typically. So do we, as a board, have examples otherwise? And those examples would probably not look like a board, the Channel 5 showing up just to come to a meeting and say, look how harmonious this board is, we want to highlight this. And what it might look like is, when you were in Floresville and a tornado came through there, and you guys, it's a very small district without a marketing and communications team, had the board of trustees in Northside authorize the superintendent to loan Northside's marketing and communications team to you
Right.
as a superintendent and to that district and the community, because you had the vice president coming to Floresville to do a press conference, and you guys just weren't equipped. And so what inadvertently got covered was not only the story about the tornado hitting and doing the damage in Floresville, but the fact that a neighboring school district who had the capacity and their board loaned resources to support them. That might be evidence of the media covering and testifying to a harmonious board that is functioning.
So as we answer, I think what threw me off is how we are answering.
Yeah, I don't think none of us were probably able to answer that very clearly because we didn't have the context. I didn't have the context until you just kind of
Yeah.
reminded us that this is really not intended.
And so a lot of
It's
times.
not all inclusive, right, as far as the bullet
Yeah.
points.
But
purpose.
the other part about this is, and I'm sorry, I keep bringing up personal relations. My husband was CEO of the San Antonio Housing Authority.
Okay.
And the press used to just, it was, we had people at our house and all this kind of stuff. And so the way, and he was always in the paper and about different things. And so but the thing at our house was, if we out of the paper, it's good.
Yeah.
So the thing was, yeah. And so my point is, with this, it not being in the newspaper speaks a lot for us. At least we're not in the paper like the Northeast is or whatever the case may be. So that's why I did not like that at all. I really didn't like that part of it.
Yeah.
Well, it was hard to, I guess, the answer, like,
Yeah.
most effective, least effective, would be hard, it's hard to put those, put that answer to that bullet point.
The sad part is that you don't get loads of media unless you have issues.
That is true.
I mean, nobody
That is
ever
true.
comes to say how wonderful you are.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
we try to encourage parents to come to meetings, because that's where you get your information from many times. I mean,
We
live
get-
information.
We get public comments that people, that they want to see us dissent.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
true. If we
I
get
mean,
along
if
too much,
we're
yeah.
both, and.
Yeah, but I lived through a time when there was every
When
TV
you
station
criticize because we
in the
don't.
parking lot.
Mhm.
I was on the board during that time.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
really?
Yeah,
broken if you
every
don't vote
5,
together,
4,
and it's
12,
broken if you-
29, 60, you name it, it was every meeting.
Oh, wow.
And the board room was packed
Yeah.
because there was dissension
Mhm.
and there was infighting and we had a corrupt board. Sorry, you can record that if you want, but it was true. And, I got elected into the middle of that. And it was a shame to see that you could fill a boardroom and get news media when there was just a horrible time. And this was a horrible time because what you said a while ago, it rolls down. And it was rolling down to our campuses, our teachers, our children, our communities, our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, everybody was just really down in the mouth, it was a sad time for East Central. And I think it's a shame that feeds a lot of people, that they only want to come when there's horrible, you're facing. And the thing is the board has to navigate this with the superintendent. We have to navigate this together. And, it's just sad. I wish we could see more news media up at meetings or news media up at functions that could reflect positively.
And unfortunately, that's not what people want to see nowadays, right?
I know.
I mean, it's not,
Yeah.
but so think about it from this perspective. You seem like a very harmonious board.
Yeah.
To an outsider that just kind of, has been here for twice in 2 weeks. But what you want to think about is how do you begin to tell that story? And so creating opportunities to talk about what's going on the campuses for Mr. Toscano, when he has the opportunity, if it's a great story that's happening on the campus, I know when I've heard him say these kinds of things, but he doesn't just give the principal the credit. but he's gonna talk about the support he has from his board. You know, just those little, you know, when you're in church, when you're at the grocery store, and there's a comment or something, you know, always have that elevator story, right, in the back of your mind. So you're listening, okay, yes, I would be concerned if I were you, if that happened. I'm going to, whatever your protocol says you're going to do. And hey, did you hear that we were just able to use some funds to get some really high quality materials for our kiddos? You know, those kinds of things.
And I think again, going back to the word indirect, I think indirectly, we do that. We have a great marketing strategy team here that just, you know, all these wonderful things we're on the, you know, so from the problem I had was because it's about board members, and I was thinking, I could have, you know, no, I had trouble with that, but for the rest of it, and that's the way it should be. The focus really shouldn't be on us. Every organization has some kind of board, you know, and if we're out of the newspaper, we're doing great.
Again, no news is good news, right?
And let the real work and the focus be on the school, the staff and all of that.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, and I would say to that second bullet, you know, just trying to now think about the intent of a body judging the degree to which this may be the honor board of the year, right? Every board is gonna have to make tough decisions. And while on the dais, they may look united always and be criticized for that, the likelihood is that behind the scenes, as they came to that decision, there was a lot of discourse. That was everything from emotional to personal to, you know, it took us a while to process and get to this place where we reached common ground.
Yeah.
Right, especially on some of the really tough issues. And I would say that looking for evidence of that would be what we would want to start doing as a board and collect those artifacts so that when we present our case as an honor board, we might be able to say things like, you know, every board goes through transition. Every board has, at some point, goes from a seasoned group of veterans to a combination of, right, and everything in between. And so you've got board members that are learning and asking a lot of questions, and others are like, my God, you know, they should know this by now, right? So how do we reconcile that? Well, on our board, we looked at operating procedures. And we said, you know what, they've been working for us well, but, you know, we really haven't addressed them formally for 20 years. Maybe it's time to take a deeper look and have 3 workshops where we took the time to do our due diligence and create what we all believed is a new and better version that represents who we are as a body today. So the courage and the willingness to make sure everybody's voice was at the table, to take the time to process and work through the messiness of creating something new from something that was sufficient. And now we've got something that they just adopted. I need your signatures, by the way, so we can ratify it. But you adopted something that is reflective of who you are today. So what to me that represents is an indication of unified action and evidence of effective resolution of differences. That's one example.
Agreed.
Well, and so I'm not gonna call anybody out because it was myself that was in the situation, but that happened, and moving on, you'd never know that there was tension and a disagreement at one point.
Oh, really?
You know what I'm saying? So like, that's how we handle it. Like,
Yeah, as it should be.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm glad you said that. I'm gonna go back because I knew we only had about an hour and a half together, so I apologize. I got started with my PowerPoint not being what it needed to be. But what you just said makes me think of this. In order to gain a shared understanding, trustees and superintendents must engage in the give and take of ideas. Doesn't say you always have to agree, right?
Right.
It's okay to disagree. And it's okay to have some struggles, and honestly, to be vulnerable and to talk about those, because so many times that's where, you know, that's where learning takes place, right? When there's been a failure so many times. And
Well, I'm real grateful for these courses, this time together, and I'm thankful to my board for, I just want to say this before I forget, thankful to this board for being open to a self-evaluation, okay? Because we have not, it's been a very long time since we've done this. And I recall gosh, I don't even remember when. And so a couple of us went to a convention or two, different ones, and there was a board that gave a presentation about self-evaluating yourselves.
Yeah.
And we shared to some of our other board members, and before long, Roland felt, and we shared our feelings with him. And right away, he's back to us, hey, you know, I put this together for y'all, how would you like to start?
Yeah.
And then everybody jumped on, so I have to piggyback on what he said, and I'm really proud of this board for jumping on not only the board roles and what we did on that, but the fact that somebody mentioned assessment and talking about ourselves on our board, and everybody jumped on. So I think that's a really good example of an honor board being able to grab something and roll with it just for sake of another board member mentioning it, or two other board members mentioning it was important.
Yeah, it's important to you, so it's important to everybody.
Right.
Thanks for sharing. Anybody else?
Passing along, that's the,
Really?
No, I just
Anything you want to say on this
Okay.
one? You okay on this one? What about you, Victor?
Good.
Okay. Okay, so, the next one I thought we might look at, code of ethics or workshop participation. Why don't we start with the workshop participation, because, I know there's some TASBs coming up, so that's, you know, part of professional growth, continuous improvement. Okay, so on this one, participation in workshops and other performance improvement programs. So we had one person rated out of 4, one person an 8, one person a 9, and then 4 people rated at a 10. So this is one of 2 that had that range from 4 to 10. Now, you know, again, I think both times we kind of refer back to the indicators, which I think is great. So some of that might be looking back at, is it the third page for y'all?
So nobody in this room created this, right?
No.
No hurt feelings?
No. This, I did not create it. Roland really had no say in it. I mean, it's just, we took the rubric because it was the honor board rubric.
Right, because I'm like,
Because that's what, at the state level, these are the kinds of things they're looking for from a board of the year.
encouragement of professional staff to participate in activities designed to improve performance.
Mhm.
How do we as a board, I guess just knowing that they're there?
Well, I think
Workshops
training can be a
and-
part of that. You know, you're making sure that your staff is receiving the training that they need
Right.
to help them be more effective in the classroom. You know, making sure that, you know, while yes, it's important for your superintendent to be in the district, but also there's so much value in networking, not just at the service center here in San Antonio, but across the state, right? The things he can go out there and learn and possibly bring back. And not just the state, I mean, y'all, and again, see, you're doing these things. I mean, y'all are involved in Holdsworth. Where all have you been, Mr. Toscano?
Oh, he's
All over
all
the globe,
over.
I think, right?
Here and there.
Yes, but there are some boards that don't want their superintendent to be gone.
They
You
don't
know,
what?
They don't want their superintendent to be gone. They don't want them to be out of the district. They don't want to spend money
Oh,
on providing some training.
oh, okay.
You're obviously not that.
Okay.
But, so that's an example of what not to do. You are an example of what to do.
Yeah, because
providing
when
that
he goes to those things, he brings those things back and we're excited about it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, wow, wow.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, what's the
He
question?
needs to be gone sometime.
Don't tell them too much.
When the cat's
Kinda
play.
But seriously, I was thinking about the encouragement, and I wasn't just thinking about Roland. I was
Yes,
thinking
ma'am.
about the staff that when we have usually the special meetings in this room and all of the information that we get. I think I believe that I know I have to speak for myself, but I sense it from the other board members, that we encourage, because we're listening, we're here, and we, you know, we can say, good job or whatever. I mean, there are lots of ways you can encourage people without going through a formal process or whatever.
Yes.
So that's how I saw that when I looked at
Okay.
that. Yeah, I think we do encourage. I hope that's what they do.
Mhm.
But I think, but
You know, Monique had made a comment about how, I'm sorry, your CFO, Judy? Judy, how she's very conservative when she's bringing, initial numbers, looking at attendance, those kinds of things. So in some cases, well, in all cases, districts have the opportunity many times to join different associations. So, there's TARS, it's rural schools, TAMS is middle school, mid-sized schools. TASA is a statewide organization.
TASBO.
Yeah, TASBO. There's TALUS. There are a lot of different organizations, but there is, for some boards, they may say, we don't need to waste our money on that. We don't need for the district to be members of all these different groups. Like, we just need to take care of ourselves, right? But there's a bigger picture to be seen. Again, for other districts to learn from East Central and the work that you're doing, but for East Central to go out there and get some other ideas, right? To come back, and how do you make that your own and best serve your students and your staff?
I think there's a perception about being conservative and trying to be frugal in some things and just being plain, I'll just use this word, tight.
Yes.
I'm the mama, so I get away with a lot of stuff. But it's an investment. If you can't understand that you need to invest in some of these things, because the things that are brought to us, they're wonderful opportunities. I think that's how we see that, and they go and they get the information, they bring it back, and we become more informed and all of that. So I see that, but I know there's a perception out there. I don't believe that's here. that okay, then you can't spend any money because you've got to hold on to those questions or whatever. And you have to have the balance. With anything, you have to have the balance and understand the investment of what that is being spent and what the value of that in the meantime.
Right. So that participation piece on that first indicator, I think, is really important. Because again, it's not just about impacting the students at East Central, but we've got 5.5 million babies across the state. And so as an East Central ISD trustee, you know, things that you do and say can impact all of our kiddos. Like, is anybody a member of the TASB? Do you have a TASB delegate right now?
We do.
Yeah. Okay.
I have been.
See, right there.
I have been since I joined, but this year.
You passed the torch?
I did, well, this year because.
He's
of
on the
my
IR.
knee. Yeah, because I'm on.
Oh.
Injured reserve.
He's on the shelf.
Yeah, I'm on the shelf this year.
I got to be his alternate last year.
So, last year she was my alternate, but this year I said, here's a torch because my knee's shot.
Yeah.
Gotta get a
But
raise.
next year I take it back.
Oh,
Drop it for time.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
So,
It's a loner.
But, yeah, so being a member there and having an understanding of not just the things that impact East Central ISD, but this board could have opinions on issues that don't really affect you yet, but they might eventually, right? So getting involved, being an advocate, having a voice across the state. And so you can do that through TASB and through, and then you can encourage your superintendent and his team to also do that through a variety of organizations. So that's a. that
So
person
encouragement
can-
of means, and I hate to keep coming back to this, but it's so hard to put those two words as far as the scale goes on a statement like that. Like, what are you saying? You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
I do, I guess it's awkwardly worded.
right, like, I just don't think that, I mean, I hate to sound like the
Yeah, I think the
but
interesting part would be, what evidence would we have
least
to
effective or effective
substantiate
to
it,
that?
right? So you start with, well, it's least effective because we don't see the evidence. We feel like we do, we think we do, but now let's start adding some evidence to it. You know, we could probably go through several of the most high-impact organizations that govern business and operations, that govern or support curriculum and instruction, that, you know, and down on the list is what we'll see is that in many of these organizations, not only are we members, but we'll have some of our staff in leadership roles in those organizations, which means you guys aren't saying to me, hey, these people can't be out of the district. They need to be in the district doing their job. They don't need to be over there at that AAASCD meeting, collaborating with all those curriculum and instruction specialists like them all across the area or state. You're saying, yeah, and bring that good stuff back and share the good stuff we're doing. So that would be evidence that you guys are encouraging it because you're not discouraging it.
Right.
Because
Okay.
we would be able to show evidence of all the organizations that we're members of and the leadership seats that East Central ISD
That's right.
people hold
Right.
and have held for a number of years, right? So, but if we couldn't find that evidence, that would be an opportunity to say, hey, I'm on it.
Right.
We're gonna get more
Yeah.
engaged.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna make sure we're growing
Why can't
professionally.
you write the rubric?
Huh? I mean, we're gonna be weighed
You
and
write
measured by it. We can beat the rubric. We
Because
can
that
beat it.
makes
We can
sense.
do it.
This encouragement of professional staff, we do, we don't not. We do. You know what I'm saying? Like,
We don't
it's
not.
hard, we don't not. Oh, we have some good ones in my car. Me and the girls come up with some good ones. But what I'm saying is, it's effective, of course it's effective if they're going and they're,
Right.
but are we encouraging them? We're not encouraging
Well, I
them.
think you are encouraging them, through the budget. You're
Right.
allowing it to happen.
Exactly.
So it's not necessarily you knocking on second grade teacher's door and saying, hey, you need to go to that.
Yeah.
We want you to go to that.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that,
Yeah.
but it's, you are providing the opportunity.
And of course it's effective, you know what I'm saying? So then in that case, of course it's effective if they're going. So it's hard for me to put a number to that when, of course it's effective
Mhm.
that they're going.
I
just
think
like
It's
they-
effective
I think
if
what
you're
I'm-
providing the opportunity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
But
we,
you know,
and we
like
are.
when Mr. Toscano came to the board and said, hey, guys, they gave a report, we've been asked by the Holsworth to la, 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 la. Remember back when he brought that?
Yep.
And we were all, yeah, do it. So that, I think, is encouragement by proxy, more or less, you know what I mean? We're just,
Right.
whatever they bring to us, that they've been contacted with,
And that's
we
a
always
good,
say
and that's
yes.
also a
Right.
good example because now it required the board to support our submission of
Right.
the application. But then also it required a representative of the board. John had to be interviewed.
Right.
Imagine
Yeah, but
that.
one of the questions they asked was, is the commitment from the board to see this thing completely?
Yeah, it's a 5-year
Yes,
commitment.
5 years, and that was one of the questions they asked me, is the board committed to completing this program? And I said, oh, yeah, most definitely.
right, there you
So
go.
that would be another example.
So,
Yeah.
so yes, it's effective. It's not,
Right.
Yes.
I'm just struggling over here.
Yeah.
With the language.
Right,
Yeah.
because, I mean, it's, of
So,
course,
as
we're
Sherry
doing
said
it,
at
it's
the
not least
beginning,
effective.
Roundabout.
So is
It's
this the
not
level
about
that
the
we're doing
instrument,
it?
it's about the discussion.
Right.
The level that we are encouraging, that's our level that we're doing it, so yes, it's most effective.
Got
The
it.
level that we
Yes.
are.
Well, it sounds
is
like
not
from
most
all of the
effective.
examples you're giving, yes.
Okay.
Right.
That's just
You,
where I
you
have
are
an
being
issue.
effective in that area.
I'm gonna have a nightmare
Yeah.
tonight about it.
Another?
Ginger,
I'm sorry. Ginger.
Don't knock.
it's like the STAR test,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Don't have a bad night.
I told her the other one, to get to the cross-country meet, I'm like, Callie, you gotta drive. And she's like, what is that?
You just drive?
You gotta drive, like, you gotta be aggressive today.
Like
you
over
gotta
there,
or
quick.
drive. I know,
man.
I'm sorry, but I just, you know,
Yeah.
wanted some clarification on that.
The other piece too, I think, is seeking out opportunities to tell your story, your successes that may have very well started from a failure or a struggle.
Yeah.
And then allowing your staff possibly to travel. You know, you submit a proposal and then it's accepted, but then they gotta travel to Washington.
Darn
We
it.
can't afford to do that. You know, we're gonna be tight. But anyway, so, okay, we don't have to do
Good
that
stuff.
first on that one. Any others in that that area that you'd like to talk about? But what about, so we are approaching an hour and a half. Any other sections you'd like to discuss? You can kind of flip to the back page to see all of them grouped and to see the ratings. Just definitely information that can be used at, future meetings and,
I'm not choosing, because I'll pick it apart and it'll be.
No.
Good. No, I think this has been good. I like it. Gives a chance to revisit some of the
Like a
things that we
cheat sheet.
see that we're doing, Kind of just brings it back home a little bit sometimes when you don't realize what's
I would
being
like
done.
to
I like it.
present at one of the conventions.
Yeah.
Maybe.
that would be awesome.
Yes.
So that's the kind of stuff they're looking for when they're looking at the honor board of the year. And then even within your presentation that you're doing, see, that's a great place to put in testimonials about how there was kind of a struggle there.
Yep.
But this is
Yeah.
the result of that,
And a struggle is really not a bad thing.
No, it's not.
It's an opportunity. I'm messing with you.
Bring it, girl. Bring it.
But seriously, it is, and that's kind of how we feel like around here about a lot of the other things that the state and everything hands down to us. We just keep making that lemonade, when they give us all these different things. And I believe it makes us stronger, more appreciative of what we have, and you gotta be able to just kind of look at it for what it is.
Okay, so just some closing, I'm gonna skip that one. Just a challenge I have, we're not gonna do this now, but as you think about the roles that we talked about, I don't expect you to actually use an Excel or anything like that, but
She's on my.
you might think about where are you spending your time? Are you spending your time as a board member? It could be during meetings. You could reflect on that. Or it could be when you're not in board meetings and you're having conversations with Mr. Toscano, or you're just in the community or within the district. Where are you spending your time? Are you at that 50,000-foot view as a board member, trying to govern and give direction? Are you at that tactical level, maybe getting involved in some of the steering, some of the managing, or that operational role? So, just be reflective of that. In the work that you're doing. So, didn't want to talk about that one anymore. On the continuing education focus, so just from the conversation we've had, like for example, I just heard Ginger say you would like to present. Are there any other thoughts on things you can do to help others grow? Even when you're preparing, you're growing through that process too, when you're trying to prepare for a presentation.
Making sure my double negative or whatever.
Yes.
Grammar.
We work on it.
Get my grammar on.
So like, for those of you who might be going to TASB, and maybe it's, and if you're not, that's okay. It could be the next SLI or whatever opportunities. You might like to do virtual training. But, are there, out of our conversation tonight, looking at those 10 different areas, are there any individual commitments that you're thinking you might want to learn a little bit more about, take a deeper dive in individually? But then, I think more importantly for the conversation right now is as a board. Is there anything, when you look at these areas, policy, educational performance, code of ethics, finance, that you would be interested in possibly taking a deeper dive? If you're at TASB, trying to find presentations that are focused on any of those areas. Does anything kind of rise to the top as you kind of reflect on the conversation this evening?
No.
I think we're doing a lot of things that I was interested in maybe checking off or doing, getting done or whatever, like
Uh-huh.
to be current.
Okay.
And I think policy might be the next maybe option to go over some policies. I can't remember the representative's name that we have through TASB, but we have one.
Yeah?
Let's use her, like,
Okay.
let's update some policies.
Mm-hmm. Flexibility. Okay, and then, I think just to close out, if you'll just take a second, and maybe jot it down, and then we can share out in just a minute, but when you think about the conversations we had tonight, other than I need to rework this instrument, you know, what have you learned? What have you possibly rediscovered? Something you really knew but it kind of fallen to the back? Something you've been reminded about? And is there anything you intend to do with that learning, that rediscovery? So I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes to kind of think about that, and then we'll share out and we'll be on our way. So maybe talk to a neighbor about it, just briefly, and then maybe we could share out just a couple of, thoughts or next steps.
I've learned that through this, that we're really doing a lot of this, and we
You
have
are.
a lot of strengths here.
Right.
Almost everyone that I see, I feel like we're practicing that.
Yeah.
I've discovered that after 20 years, I'm not really on any, what is it called? Wait, where is it?
Like participation
Yeah,
and
I'm
professional organization.
Oh, yeah, okay, I don't have any, I'm not in any association memberships, or I'm not participating in anything like that. So I maybe should try to join something,
Mhm.
and so that's what I intend to do about that discovery.
Okay.
How's that sound?
You're a member of TASB, you were
Oh,
like
yeah,
in
I
place
know,
on that
but-
advocacy game last year, that's,
Yeah,
That's
that's
true.
true,
Your
but
membership.
I could do more,
Yeah.
that's what I.
And you've got a great story to tell, how your experience has
Mm.
changed so much. from
Oh,
when you first
gosh,
got on
yeah.
the board to
Yeah.
What you're experiencing now.
That was crazy,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Good one,
Thank you for sharing that.
of course.
Anybody else? Yeah, you've been quiet.
I have, I've used all my words today. I'm very taxed today. I will say, what I've learned, all the information that I got today would have helped me answer this yesterday.
Yeah.
I was kind of, it was a totally different perspective, and so I guarantee my numbers, and I wasn't the number 4, I don't remember putting down 4, so y'all don't look at me like that. But, some of them definitely would have gone up just by the fact of the instruction here and some of the pointers. That was very insightful. I wouldn't say rediscover, I would be more discovering
Yeah.
on my side. A lot of parallels with what I do at CPS Energy, but definitely different because of the structure and volunteering over here, getting paid over there. I'm not worried about getting fired over here, over there, they're different.
Yeah.
But what I intend to do about, the discoveries is learning more, getting more involved and deeper in the learning part of it. And what do I want to do about it? I continue on. I enjoy learning. I like learning new things. I'm a troubleshooter at heart. I love to troubleshoot. But I did use a lot of words today, so.
Okay.
I'm good. Yeah.
Appreciate you sharing.
Thank you.
And, you know, sometimes when you're in the middle of it, you don't realize how awesome it is. Kind of like what Monique was saying, when you start looking over that list, like, oh, we do that, we do that, we do that. Y'all can be the ones on the stage next year, you know?
Showcasing our admin.
I don't know, maybe I'm easy to please, but I've felt all this time that I've been working with some very good people. I'm very comfortable with this whole gang. Don't like them with a damn, but I like them. No, I'm very, very satisfied with how we work. And all these things I felt were all top-notch. Answers that I had were, hey, we're doing it right. There are a lot of things that I could do with folks with your offices that I should contact. I keep saying I'm gonna call, see what else I can study. You know, contact, see what, just for my own, it's like, maybe I should call A&M, see if they'll accept me for a master's program. You know, that kind of thing. That kind of thing.
Okay.
Maybe I can call your offices and see what's available so I could take. Talk to Camry, hey, what can I do? You know,
Yeah.
so in along that line, call your offices, you know, through her and say, hey, Camry, what is available? What can I take to better myself for the district? You know, to better educate myself that will help me through the district.
Right.
And so I need to do that, not just think about it, but do it. And this is telling me, hey, you should, now just get off dead center, do that. So that's kind of, say, you know, you really should, you need to do that, make you a better rep. So.
Well,
that's-
and you know, I mean, there are requirements, it's the minimum that the training that board members should receive. But when they're looking at for the outstanding board, they are looking for where, you know, individuals and then the team as a whole is strategically trying to figure out what's the next level for us, how do we get there? And quite honestly, you're doing that even by tonight, because you don't have to be here spending an hour and a half on this. You already have your team of 8 training, but this is something you've prioritized, you know, so that's a great example too. Thank you, Victor. Okay, any closing thoughts, anything you want to add, Roland?
Well, my learning from this was, you know, when we looked at the finance category, almost everybody rated it a 10 and felt very confident, could speak to several examples of artifacts. And as we talked through the others, we were able to discuss several of those artifacts, but what occurred to me is, obviously in the area of finance, I, as a superintendent, do a better job of facilitating, telling the story, and providing artifacts for the board in a way that they understand and could repeat as they have conversations out in the community. And in some of those other areas, while we have some evidence, I haven't told that story quite as succinctly and quite as effectively so that the board could use that information to turn around in the community as they have discussions.
And I appreciate that comment, but it wasn't that I don't get that from you. I do. Judy is specific in that, but
Yeah.
so is Shannon, and so I didn't have a problem with that. It was the word to rate that.
Yeah, no, but
You know what I'm saying?
it's a good reflection for me because we do always need to tell the story well in a way, and I heard Emilio a couple of workshops ago say, just help me help do my role better by understanding.
Yeah.
Put this in terms that I can have an elevator speech, right? That I can point back to have really intelligent, accurate conversations when asked.
Well, I got the vocabulary
and,
to put on.
so-
Oh, God,
Parent
please.
group over
It was a
here.
good reminder.
Not
It was a good
not.
reminder for
Not
me
not.
and our staff that are here.
I mean, just asking it. I'll do anonymous.
Let's not do it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna drive home.
Yeah, so thank you. Well, good job
Yes,
tonight.
thank you
This was
so
a
much.
great
It's been very
exercise.
enjoyable.
Honor to get to
Thank
be
you
with
so
all of
much.
you.
Very
Look forward to
enjoyable.
seeing some of y'all at Tassie down there.
Not that I have, not that Mama has to have the last word, but
But
I
you
just,
do.
yeah, I've been on the board almost 12 years. And it has really been so refreshing to know that I'm still learning and I have a joy for learning. I get to come to a school board meeting or I get to come to a thing rather than I gotta go to a school. There's so much negative stuff on the outside that would frame us, and I don't mean just East Central, I mean school boards as a whole. And it is refreshing to know that once we kind of come together, we're a whole lot bigger and better than any of the other stuff or whatever, and our focus. I mean, you know, we really are better together. I know there's a lot of those, but I see that demonstrated. So and I think we do tell our stories in so many different ways that maybe don't necessarily get heard, but that's okay. I mean, it's just another opportunity to learn how to do that better, and I have really appreciated the trainings. I really have. And I know I've been to a lot
remind
of
me.
conventions, but I take, Cambry helps me. I do a lot of stuff online, and so I am learning, in other ways as well. So I really do appreciate, and I think TASB does a great job in presenting and having things available for us to be able to walk through all those things and talk, so that we can be better together.
Very true.
So we're gonna end with this. Leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. So thank you for your leadership, for taking on this role, and like you said, just you're modeling lifelong learning by the work that you're doing tonight, and your interest in continuing on with more continuing education. So I think we're done.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank
much.
Thank you so much.
It's always so
Appreciate it.
enjoyable. We'll have more.
Great.
All right. With that, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Right.
We're done.